Three men cornered Johnny Carson's assistant outside NBC studios. "Give us your purse." Then a voice from behind them said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." They turned around. It was Clint Eastwood. What happened in the next 30 seconds became a Tonight Show legend. It was November 19th, 1982, and Rachel Morrison had been Johnny Carson's personal assistant for exactly 18 months. She loved the job. The chaos of managing Johnny's impossible schedule, the energy of working at the Tonight Show, the thrill of being at the center of American television. But there was one part of the job she absolutely hated: leaving the NBC Studios building after dark alone. The parking structure was a solid 5-minute walk from the main entrance, and that walk took her through a dimly lit area that always made her nervous and uneasy. She'd mentioned it to security twice, asked if they could patrol the route more regularly, but nothing had changed. Budget constraints, they said. Staffing issues. Not enough personnel to cover everything. Tonight's taping had run late. A technical problem with one of the cameras had delayed everything by 40 minutes. And by the time Rachel gathered Johnny's notes, organized tomorrow's schedule, and locked up his office, it was nearly midnight. The building was mostly empty. The janitorial crew hadn't arrived yet. The security desk was undermanned. The parking structure felt like it was miles away instead of just a few hundred feet. Rachel clutched her purse tighter and walked quickly, her heels clicking loudly on the pavement, echoing off the concrete walls. She was maybe 50 feet from the main entrance, close enough to see the lights, but too far to feel safe when she heard footsteps behind her. Fast footsteps, multiple people, the sound of shoes hitting pavement with purpose and speed. She didn't turn around. That was the rule, wasn't it? Don't make eye contact. Don't acknowledge them. Don't show weakness. Just keep walking. Get to your car. Lock the doors. Drive away. Everything will be fine if you just keep moving forward. But the footsteps got closer, faster, and then suddenly there were people in front of her cutting off her path. Three men, early 20s, moving with a kind of coordinated purpose that told Rachel this wasn't random. They'd been waiting, watching. "Nice purse," the tallest one said. He was lean, wearing a Lakers jacket with a smile that didn't reach his eyes and looked more like a threat than an expression of humor. "Why don't you hand that over? Make this easy for everyone." Rachel's heart hammered against her ribs. She glanced back toward the NBC entrance. Too far. At least 100 feet. She looked toward the parking structure. Even farther, maybe 200 feet of open ground. Her car keys were in her hand, gripped so tight the metal was cutting into her palm. But they were useless if she couldn't reach her car. "I don't want any trouble," Rachel said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just let me pass." "Oh, we'll let you pass," another one said, moving closer. "Right after you give us the purse and your jewelry and whatever cash you've got." The third man, shorter but built like he spent time in a gym, circled around behind her. Rachel was surrounded. Three of them, one of her, nobody around. The NBC entrance was visible, but might as well have been a mile away. Rachel's mind raced through her options. Scream. Who would hear? Run. They'd catch her before she made it 10 feet fight against three men. "Give us the purse now," the tall one said, and his smile was gone. His hand moved toward his jacket pocket, and Rachel didn't need to see what was in there to get the message. This was really happening. She was about to be mugged 50 feet from one of the most famous television studios in America, and there was nothing she could do about it. Rachel's hand trembled as she started to reach for her purse strap, and then a voice came from somewhere behind the muggers, a voice that was calm, measured, and carried effortlessly across the parking lot. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The muggers froze. Rachel froze. Everyone turned toward the voice. A man was standing there about 20 feet away, perfectly still. He must have been walking from his own car, or maybe he'd been there the whole time and nobody had noticed him in the shadows. He stood completely still, hands relaxed at his sides, no visible tension in his posture or shoulders. But there was something about the way he stood, the absolute stillness, the unwavering focus, the way his eyes tracked every movement that made everyone suddenly very aware of his presence. Even in the dim parking lot lights, Rachel recognized him immediately. Clint Eastwood. She'd seen him around NBC before. He was there periodically for various appearances and projects, and everyone in the building knew who he was. But she'd never been this close to him, and she'd certainly never seen him look the way he looked right now. This wasn't the charming talk show guest or the smiling celebrity. This was something else entirely. His face was set in an expression that Rachel would later describe as the scariest calm I've ever seen. Not angry, not threatening, just present, focused, like a man who had assessed a situation and made a decision about how it was going to end. The tall mugger recovered first, trying to reassert control. "This doesn't concern you. Old man. Keep walking." Eastwood didn't move, didn't blink, just kept looking at them with those famous eyes that had stared down dozens of bad guys in movies. Except this wasn't a movie, and the look in those eyes was very, very real. "I'm giving you gentlemen one chance," Eastwood said, his voice still perfectly calm. "Walk away right now. All three of you just turn around and walk away." The tall mugger laughed, but it sounded forced. "Or what? You gonna make us?" Eastwood took one step forward. Just one. But something about that single step made all three muggers take an involuntary step backward. "I'm 62 years old," Eastwood said conversationally. "I've got arthritis in my knees. My back isn't what it used to be. And I haven't been in a real fight in probably 30 years. But here's what you need to understand." He took another step forward. The muggers took another step back. "I don't need to fight you," Eastwood continued, "because in about 30 seconds, I'm going to walk that young lady back to the NBC entrance, and I'm going to make sure security sees all three of your faces very clearly. NBC has cameras covering every inch of this area. You're already on tape. The question is whether you want to add assaulting a 62-year-old man to the charges they're going to file." The short, muscular one tried to salvage the situation. "There's three of us and one of you. You really think, son?" Eastwood interrupted, and his voice dropped even lower, becoming almost conversational, but somehow more menacing for it. "I've spent the last 40 years playing men who solve problems with violence. Cowboys, cops, vigilantes. You know what I learned from all those roles. Violence is what stupid men do when they're too dumb to think of anything else. Violence is the last resort of people who don't have better options. You three aren't stupid, are you? You look like you can think. You look like you can make smart decisions when you need to. So make one now." Nobody answered. That's what I thought," Eastwood said. "So here's how this ends. You three walk away right now. You walk fast. You walk far, and you never come near NBC studios again. And in exchange, I don't tell security to pull the tapes. I don't give them a description. I don't tell them about the Lakers jacket or the gym membership or whatever's in that pocket you keep reaching for. Everyone goes home tonight. Simple." For a long moment, nobody moved. The three muggers looked at each other, then back at Eastwood, then at each other again. Rachel held her breath. Then the tall one said, "This is bullshit," but he was already backing away. His two friends followed. Within seconds, they were walking quickly toward the street, then jogging, then running. Eastwood watched them until they were completely out of sight. Only then did he turn to Rachel. "You okay?" he asked, and his voice was suddenly gentle, concerned. Rachel realized she was shaking. Yes, I think so. Thank you. God, thank you so much." "Come on," Eastwood said, offering his arm. "Let me walk you back to the building. We need to report this to security." As they walked back toward the NBC entrance, Rachel's mind was still trying to process what had just happened. "Mr. Eastwood, I don't know how to thank you if you hadn't been there. Wrong place, wrong time for them," Eastwood said. "Right place, right time for you. Weren't you scared?" Rachel asked. "There were three of them." Eastwood smiled slightly, terrified. "My heart's probably beating twice as fast as yours right now. But here's the thing about fear. Most people think courage means not being afraid. But real courage is being afraid and not showing it. Those guys were looking for an easy victim. The second they realized you weren't alone, the second they saw someone who was afraid of them, the whole situation changed. But you played it so cool like you do in the movies." "That's exactly what I did," Eastwood said. "I played it like a scene, assess the situation, figure out my character's objective, committed to the role. Turns out 40 years of acting has some real-world applications." They reached the NBC entrance, and Eastwood insisted on staying with Rachel while she reported the incident to security. Johnny Carson, who was still in the building reviewing next week's schedule, heard the commotion and came down to see what was happening. When Rachel told him the story, Johnny's face went through about 6 different emotions. Fear for Rachel, anger at the muggers, relief that she was safe. And then when she mentioned who had intervened, something close to awe. "Clint, I don't know how to thank you," Johnny said. "You could have me back on the show," Eastwood said with a slight smile. "It's been a while," Johnny laughed. "Done. And this time you're telling this story on air." 3 nights later, Clint Eastwood was Johnny Carson's guest on The Tonight Show. The story of the parking lot rescue had spread through NBC like wildfire, and everyone in the building wanted to hear it directly from the people involved. The audience was packed. Staff members who normally didn't attend tapings found excuses to be in the studio that night. Johnny brought Rachel out first. Let her tell her side of the story from her perspective. She described the fear, the sense of helplessness, the way time seemed to slow down when she realized she was trapped. And then that moment when she heard Eastwood's voice behind the muggers and knew somehow that she was going to be okay. That help had arrived in the most unexpected form. Then Eastwood came out, and Johnny immediately asked him to describe what happened. "I was walking to my car," Eastwood said, "saw the situation developing, and I thought to myself, what would Harry Callahan do?" The audience laughed, recognizing the reference to Eastwood's most famous character. "But then I realized," Eastwood continued, "Harry would probably shoot them, and I didn't have a gun. Didn't need one either. Most people, when they're doing something wrong, they know it. They're looking for an excuse to stop. Sometimes all you need to do is give them that excuse." Johnny leaned forward. "But Clint, you were outnumbered 3-1. You'll forgive me for saying this. You're 62 years old. Weren't you worried about what might happen?" "Of course, I was worried," Eastwood said. "But I was also thinking about that young woman. She was alone. She was scared. And I was the only person there who could help. What was I supposed to do? Keep walking? Pretend I didn't see anything? Most people would," Johnny said quietly. "Then most people need to reconsider what kind of person they want to be." Eastwood replied, "Look, I've made a career playing heroes, but heroes aren't people who aren't afraid. Heroes are people who are afraid and help anyway. That's it. That's the whole definition." The audience applauded, and Johnny nodded. "Rachel told me you said something to her about courage and fear, about not showing fear." "Yeah," Eastwood said. "Fear's natural. It's your brain telling you there's danger. But showing fear, that's a choice. Those guys in the parking lot were looking for someone weak, someone scared, someone who wouldn't fight back. The moment they saw someone who wasn't backing down, they lost their nerve. Most bullies are like that." After the show, NBC dramatically increased security in the parking areas. They installed better lighting throughout the entire lot, hired additional security guards for night shifts, and created an escort service for any employee working late. The incident had been a wake-up call. They'd been lucky that Clint Eastwood had been there. Next time, they might not be so fortunate. Rachel Morrison worked for Johnny Carson for another 10 years. She later said that the incident changed her in ways she didn't fully understand at the time. Seeing someone step into danger for a complete stranger. Seeing someone refuse to be intimidated by threats and violence. Seeing someone use presence and confidence and intelligence instead of physical force. It changed her entire definition of what courage actually meant. Clint Eastwood never talked about the incident again publicly. For him, it was just something that happened. Something any decent person would have done. But for Rachel, for the NBC staff, for everyone who heard the story, it became something more. It became proof that sometimes the heroes we see on screen are heroes in real life. Not because they're not afraid, but because they refuse to let fear stop them from doing the right thing. The parking lot where it happened is still there. The lighting is better now. Security patrols it regularly. And everyone who works at NBC knows the story of the night Clint Eastwood walked up behind 3 muggers and stopped the crime with nothing but his calm presence and voice. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't violence. It's the calm certainty of someone who knows right from wrong and won't back down. If this powerful and inspiring story moved you deeply, please subscribe and share. Have you ever stepped in to help someone in danger? Share your story. Heroes aren't fearless.